Welcome. Let's talk about empathy, but maybe not in the way you're used to. We're going to dive into this idea that empathy isn't just a feeling that happens to you, but an actual skill you can shape, control, and even see. It's a kind of superpower with its own hidden geometry.
So let's start with this piece of wisdom from our source material. It's such a core idea. True understanding isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about resonance. Think about it. Like a tuning fork, you can't force a connection. You have to get quiet, listen, and match their frequency to truly hear their song.
And that brings us to the real question, doesn't it? For so many of us, especially if you're a highly empathic person, this gift can feel more like being caught in an emotional hurricane. You feel everything, all the time, from everyone, and it's just completely overwhelming.
Well, there's actually a name for this experience: hyperempathy. It's exactly what it says here. Feeling what other people are feeling so intensely, it feels like it's happening inside of you. And according to our source, getting a handle on this incredible sensitivity is the very first step toward an even deeper kind of perception.
All right, so let's really get into it. If we're going to learn to control this ability, we first have to understand, where is this emotional storm even coming from? Why does it all feel so incredibly deep?
It all starts in our brains, with these incredible things called mirror neurons. You can think of them exactly like this. They're little invisible mirrors. When you see a friend laugh, your mirror neurons fire up, and for a split second, you feel that same joy. It's the biological hardware for compassion, for connection itself.
Now, for a hyperempath, that mirror neuron system isn't just on, it's cranked up to 11. The volume is way, way too loud. You're not just getting a faint reflection, you're getting blasted by a tidal wave. But listen, this is so important. This is not a flaw. It's an incredibly powerful system that's just a little out of control, creating that emotional flood.
And this slide, wow, this really shows you the conflict that's happening inside. Your natural state, where you feel creative and at peace, is this calm, deep theta wave. But what you're constantly picking up from the outside world is all this frantic, high-stress beta wave energy from other people's anxiety. It's a total clash of frequencies happening inside your own head.
So, the big question is, how in the world do you deal with that constant clash? Well, the source material points to a solution that's been around for thousands of years. It's about forging a kind of inner shield, using a method that finally gives you the control you've been looking for.
The key, the absolute cornerstone of this method, is a practice called pratyahara. Now, it literally translates to withdrawal of the senses. But don't think of it as shutting the world out. Think of it as learning to consciously turn down the volume on all that external noise so you can finally get a handle on that invisible mirror.
And I know that might sound a little mystical, but look, it really boils down to two simple, practical steps. First, you just lower the volume on the outside world. This helps quiet down all those anxious beta thoughts. Then, and this is the game changer, you clean your own mirror. You clear out your own emotional static, so what you're picking up from others is a clean, clear signal, not something distorted by your own stuff.
And when you do this, something amazing actually happens inside your brain. You physically shift your brain waves into a stable alpha state. This is that sweet spot of calm, focused awareness. And you go from being a sponge getting tossed around by the emotional waves to becoming a calm, stable island right in the middle of it all.
Now that whole idea of cleaning the mirror, that has a name too. It's called ahimsa. You can think of it as energetic harmlessness. It's this deep understanding that before you can truly and clearly perceive what someone else is feeling, you have to make sure your own energy is clean. You have to stop accidentally projecting your own static onto their signal.
Okay, so once you've built that stable inner state, once you've found your calm center, this is where things get really, really interesting. You can start to move beyond just managing emotions and actually start to perceive their true form.
You see, our brains are just label-making machines, right? We call things sadness, or anger, or joy. But what happens when you turn down that inner voice? When you stop slapping labels on everything? The emotions lose their stories and just become pure shapes of energy. Emotion becomes geometry.
So, what does this actually feel like? Let's take anxiety. Instead of the story about being anxious, you might just perceive the raw energy of it as a chaotic mess of sharp, fast, jagged lines.
Or how about determination? You know that feeling when someone is just absolutely locked in on a goal? You might perceive that as something like this: a thick, solid, downward-pointing arrow of energy. It has force, it has direction. And then there's peacefulness. That's a totally different shape, right? It could feel like a large, soft, stable column of color. No sharp edges, no chaotic movement, just a steady, calm presence. You start to read the energy itself, not just the story we attach to it.
All right, enough theory. It's time to put this to the test. Our source material calls this your first dragon trial, a very real, practical challenge to see just how much control you've gained over that invisible mirror.
Here's how you're going to do it. You find a partner, and their job is to silently shift between two strong but different emotions. Say, deep joy and then deep sadness. Your job is to close your eyes, find that calm alpha state. Picture your inner world as a still, calm lake, and just observe. You're not guessing. You're just noticing when the reflection on your inner lake changes. Do you feel the shift, or do you get pulled under by the wave?
So, after the trial, how do you know what happened? It's simple. If you felt yourself suddenly getting swamped by anxiety or sadness, that's just a sign you got flooded with those beta waves. Your mirror was still a little wild. But if you felt the shift as a clear, distinct change in energy without losing your own calm center, boom, that's it. That's alpha control. That means your Pratyahara practice was a success.
And really, this brings us to the most important takeaway of this entire explainer. It's so simple, but it's so profound. True empathy training is not about trying to feel more than you already do. It's about learning to filter better. The goal isn't to be a bigger sponge, it's to be a clearer channel.
And that leaves us right here with this really powerful question to think about. Once you learn how to quiet the storm, once you have the power to control your focus, you are no longer a victim of all the emotional noise around you. You're the one in control. You get to choose. So, whose song are you going to choose to hear?